Woman marries grandpa, but when he sees her dress, the weirdest thing happens. Zhai Wei was Mr. Few's granddaughter. She was the apple of his eye, and her life had taken a sharp turn at a young age. Her parents were separated, and she was sent to live in Chengdu, China, with Mr. Fu and his wife. They were loving people who raised her with care and attention. She developed a bond with them that was so strong now that she considers them to be her mother and father. But having elderly parents had downsides. Zhai Wei made a point to keep a close relationship with her grandparents. When she was 18, she left the country to study in Switzerland and then Singapore, but she talked to them frequently. She told them about her travels, studies, and even relationship problems. Eventually, when she moved back to China to start her career, she continued to keep her grandparents close. It was a wise decision because time soon caught up with them. Zhai Wei became a successful entrepreneur after she graduated from university, and the fruits of her work allowed her to live a good life. She tried to include her grandparents as much as possible, taking them on holidays abroad and even to nightclubs. But soon the reality of the couple's age started catching up with the family. Zhai Wei didn't know if she could handle what was to come. Late last year, when Zhai Wei was 25 years old, her grandfather, Fu Qiquan, fell seriously ill. Doctors had told Zhai Wei they didn't know if he'd live much longer. This was not Mr. Fu's first health scare, but she had to grapple with some heartbreaking news. It made Zhai Wei determined to make the most of the time spent with the couple who'd raised her so lovingly. Mr. Fu had had heart problems for a long time, and 2 years prior he suffered a cerebral stroke that paralyzed his body and kept him in the hospital for 3 months. He was now 87 years old, and Zhai Wei knew her granddaughter was becoming frailer with every passing day. Even though she decided not to leave his side, something inside was telling her that it was not enough. She knew that she had shown him how much she loved him before it was too late. Zhai Wei was at her grandfather's side every day, and she fed him and took care of his every need. But she wanted to help him fulfill his life's dreams. She wanted to do more, and she knew he'd always wanted to see her walk down the aisle. But she didn't have a boyfriend, and she didn't plan to get married anytime soon. That was a problem, but not one she was going to allow to get in the way of making her grandpa happy. Zhai Wei's primary focus in her personal life at that moment was her career. She wasn't sure her grandfather would live long enough to see her find the one and marry, but she was unwilling to let that stop her from realizing his wish. So she decided to give Mr. Fu a surprise that would make him happier than he had been in a long time. But she kept her plan a secret. Zhai Wei had taken her grandfather to the hospital for a checkup earlier that month, and she'd casually told him, "We're actually going to take some pictures today." Once they were there, Mr. Fu nodded and said, "Okay." They arrived at the photography studio with an IV drip in tow. Then Zhai Wei's grandfather realized that this photo shoot wasn't a normal one. Zhai Wei put on a beautiful white bridal gown, while her grandfather put on the dapper suit he'd been handed. "My grandfather would be the one to give me away at my wedding," Zhai Wei explained. "Because I don't know if he could live long enough to see that, I wanted to make sure he could do that now." As it turned out, the photo shoot was wedding themed. It had been a truly magical day, and there were pictures to prove it. The whole affair cost Zhai Wei 3,000 won, about $476, and to her it was worth every penny. Seeing her grandfather smile when she looked at her meant everything to Zhai Wei. The smile was worth immortalizing, so that's exactly what she did. She and Mr. Fu had pictures taken in the studio and in a small church, for which they each wore a different outfit. "I had my grandfather's portrait tattooed on my arm in January because I want my new friends and my children to be able to know what he looks like in the future," Zhai Wei said, explaining her decision to get a tattoo of her grandfather's face. The topic of young women and marriage is a hot-button issue in China, where images from the photo shoot have gone viral. As China's middle class continues to grow, the population has become more educated. Young women have started to prioritize career over marriage and family. Zhai Wei went above and beyond to give her grandfather a small glimpse of his dream, but other young women in China don't take the pressure to get married so lightly. Traditional values tend to persist in the older generations, and this leads to clashes. Any woman who remains single at the age of 30 is considered a shengnu, or leftover woman, in traditional Chinese culture. This mentality that women should be married by the time they're 27 years old leads to the women's families pressuring them to find a husband in order to avoid this social stigma. Increasingly, however, young women have been fighting back against the pressure and the concept. Many of the financially independent Chinese women who've remained unmarried into their late 20s are highly educated. This means that their high earning potential makes them an important consumer group as they have more career opportunities. These women have slowly been gaining power in an extremely patriarchal society. They're reclaiming the term shengnu, but with a massive connotation. These women are not leftovers, they're just too successful to settle for any man.